Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Niagara Region and Grimsby are situated on treaty land. This land is steeped in the rich history of the First Nations, such as the Hattawandrunk, the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe, including the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. There are many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people from across Turtle Island that live and work in Niagara today. The Regional Municipality of Niagara and Town of Grimsby stands with all Indigenous peoples, past and present, in promoting the wise stewardship of the lands on which we live. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary or non-pecuniary interest? Okay, seeing none, moving on to the approval of agenda. I would like to propose amending the order of the agenda to consider item 9.4, report DCS 2537, Community Services User Study, final report, and proposed 2026 rates and fees ahead of item 9.1. Can I get a mover and a seconder to approve the agenda as amended? Okay, moved by Councillor DeFlavio, seconded by Member Brabant. Resolved that the agenda for the September 23rd, 2025 Community Services Committee meeting be approved as amended. All in favor? Okay, that's carried. Can I get a mover and a seconder to receive the previous meeting minutes? Okay, moved by Member Laird, seconded by Councillor Gristangi. Resolved that the following minutes be received. Community Services Committee, June 12th, 2025. Grimsby Green Advisory Committee, June 12th, 2025. Art Gallery Special Purpose Advisory Committee, July 10th, 2025. Grimsby Green Advisory Committee, July 10th, 2025. Grimsby Green Advisory Committee, September 11th, 2025. All in favor? That's carried. There are no delegations tonight. And moving on to museum business, can I get a mover and a seconder to get report DCS 2535 Grimsby Museum Information Report, September 2025, on the floor for discussion? Moved by Councillor Howe, seconded by Member Laird. And Janet, can you please go ahead?
Thank you, through you, Chair. Our Young Canada Work students have finished their term. They had 13 weeks with us, and it was extremely valuable to the museum. They did great work, and we had nothing but compliments for them. And events for October have been put on hold due to construction on the museum foundation. We have a few upcoming events. Coffee with the Curator is going on October 4th from 2 to 3:30 with exhibit designer Sophia Beraldo. Please come if you have any questions. She can come and answer all questions about the new exhibit that just opened in May. I'm going to promote the graveyard tours, but they're sold out, so I'm sorry. But the graveyard tours, we're doing them at St. Andrews, October 1st and October 15th, but it is sold out. I'm sorry, you can call and get on the waiting list. Spirits with Spirits is going ahead on October 9th at Southwood Park with psychic medium Kevin Whitaker yet again. It is selling out very quickly, so if you're interested in going to Spirits with Spirits, get your tickets fast. You can see in the report there's a list of the past events that we did over the summer. All of them were very, very successful. Nothing but compliments for them. Exhibitions for next year, the list is out. We're bringing in an exhibit from the Canadian Science and Technology Museum called Cipher to Cipher, and it's all about breaking codes and Enigma machines and stuff like that through World War II. It has reached great success in other museums across Canada, so we're hoping that that will be great. And we also have an exhibition from the Grimsby Photography Club from June to November. It'll be a community exhibition, so come and check that out as well. The main focus of this report is the Grimsby Glam Gala, which is going ahead on November 7th. The gala will be going ahead this year, and it is reaffirming its role as the cornerstone celebration of our community arts, culture, and heritage. So while the gala is confirmed, success relies on a strong shared commitment from both the committee and town council. So we're just asking for a little bit of support, promotion and outreach. We're just hoping that everybody will become an ambassador for the gala and get the word out there. Tickets are going live tomorrow, so spread the word far and wide if you don't mind. If you have any leads on sponsorship or donations, we would love to hear about it. Just an introduction would be great, and we will take it from there. Ashley, Sylvia, and I have been working very hard behind the scenes trying to get this going together. If you feel like you'd like to volunteer for the event, we would love to have you. Volunteers get a free ticket to the event, so if you feel like you want to volunteer your time, please come on by and let us know. We are confident that we're confident in the gala's potential to deliver meaningful outcomes for our community. However, success cannot be achieved on our own. The combined support of the GLAM Committee, Town Council, and community members will ensure the gala not only proceeds but thrives as a flagship event in Grimsby. So are there any questions about the gala and how we're going about it? No? Can I count on all of you to buy tickets? That would be wonderful. The building foundation repair project at the Grimsby Museum is well on its way. We are undertaking the foundation repair, but it will have short-term impacts on the day-to-day operations of the museum, but longer-term benefits for the safety and sustainability of the institution. The operational impacts are during the construction period, the museum may face temporary closures of the entire facility to ensure visitor and staff safety. Access to the entrances, parking, or public areas may be restricted or rerouted. Sensitive collections may need to be relocated to protect them from dust, vibration, or environmental fluctuations. Staff workflows may also be disrupted, requiring temporary relocations of the office functions or modified schedules. Staff will be able to work from home or move to alternate locations for the duration of the repair. Programming impacts. The foundation repair will have an effect on our public programming and exhibitions. Programs, workshops, and community events may have to be shifted online or rescheduled or delivered in partnership with other institutions to ensure continuity. These disruptions could temporarily reduce attendance and admission revenue, with some additional pressure placed on programming budgets. The staff will continue to engage volunteers through our Volunteering at Home program. Our long-term benefits, while the repair process will present challenges, the long-term outcomes will significantly strengthen the museum's operations. The work will ensure a stable and secure foundation, improving safety for visitors, staff, and the collections. It may also enhance the accessibility and reduce long-term maintenance costs, allowing the museum to operate more efficiently. Upon completion, the reopening of fully restored facilities presents an opportunity to re-engage audiences, rebuild momentum, and attract renewed public interest in exhibition and programming. The repairs are expected to be completed in time for Remembrance Day, at least at the front of the building, and hopefully by the time Fantasy of Trees moves in. And that is everything.
Thank you, Janet. Do we have any questions from the committee? Yes. Councillor DeFlavio.
Thank you, Chair. Through you. I was going to ask you about Remembrance Day, so I'm glad that you mentioned it. The other thing was, and it could be for Sarah and not for you, there was a mural approved.
Yes.
Do we know a timeline for that? Is it separate from this project, or is it going to be done at the same time?
Through you, Chair, the mural is completed. It is waiting to be installed. The delay was the foundation. They didn't want to put it up and then risk it being damaged with the big machinery because they are digging around that side of the building. I spoke actually with Matt Dancer this morning, and they're hoping to have it installed this year. So by after the foundation repair is done, they're hoping to install it then, and we will have an opening for that as well with the artist.
Are there any questions? Other questions? No? Okay. Resolve that report DCS 2535, Grimsby Museum Information Report, September 2025, dated September 23rd, 2025, be received for information. All in favor? That is carried. Moving on to discussion reports. The first discussion report this evening is DCS 2537, Community Services User Fee Study, final report and proposed 2026 rates and fees. Can I get a mover and a seconder to get it on the floor for discussion? Okay, moved by Councillor Korstanji, seconded by Member Brabant. Now we will receive a presentation on the user fee study report from Amelie Carr and David Lynch of Optimus SBR, who are joining us by Zoom. Amelie and David, please go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Actually, sorry, I think our Director of Community Services would like to start it off. Thank you.
Sorry, David, I'll give you one more pause in there. Now we have Amoli, so that's great. I just wanted to thank Amoli and David for being here. This has been quite an endeavor to undertake, as I'm sure they would nod their heads to. Community services rates and fees are a little bit more tricky than others because there's a lot of nuance to it, and we're also in the midst of, opening a new building, looking at new rates and fees. So I just want to acknowledge the work that's gone into this. I think from staff's point of view in particular, the biggest piece for us isn't just the rates that we've landed on, it's really the process that we're taking to get to them. And I really just think that's an important part to think about. As we know, our rates and fees do tend to fluctuate year to year. Sometimes there's different ways of looking at it, different variables that might come into play. And I think we've really tried to build all the content in a way where we can really be responsive to that. And I think that's one of, for me, the biggest takeaways out of this work. So just wanted to thank the team in advance. They're going to walk you through it. Just wanted to emphasize as well, you're receiving the report this evening, but the actual rates and fees for approval will be through the bylaw that you normally get each year. So with that, take it away, David and Amoli.
Thank you very much. And I understand, is there someone running the slide deck in chambers?
Yes, sirs.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Through the chair, thank you very much. We thank you for having us. And as the director mentioned, we work very collaboratively with the Grimsby team throughout this, and it's been a journey, but glad to be speaking with you here tonight. I will try to keep my remarks fairly limited so that there's time for questions, and Trevor may also chime in on a few items as we go, but we'll dive in. So starting with the next slide, the two main things we wanted to do tonight were, one, recap the fee setting methodologies for facilities and programs. We did run through that with the committee several months ago, and then present and discuss recommended policy directions and implementation for a number of the policies that go with that methodology. If we skip forward 2 slides to project mission and success, at Optimus, we tend to speak of mission as the nuts and bolts of the engagement that we've been asked to undertake, and success is the more intangible things we want to achieve. So obviously here we were doing a comprehensive user fee study, and what we wanted to make sure as we did that was that affordability is maintained as much as possible, and that conscious trade-offs are made between cost recovery and tax-based funds in an evidence-based way as we try to achieve that affordability, and that public consultation input is considered in the final recommendations. We go to the next slide very briefly. This is an overview of the process we undertook. We engaged a number of internal staff, stakeholders, user groups, did an environmental scan, developed a draft methodology, which we shared with this committee, and then have since finalized that and then done further benchmarking and gotten to the final report that's included in your package today. What I'll do next is do a quick high-level overview of that methodology and just outlining the broad logic for this process that Sarah shared with us. And that's really, again, an important part of this is that there is a rational process for landing on fees going forward that gives staff some flexibility at the same time. So for both facilities and programs, we set out to come up with a fee setting and cost recovery methodology whereby there's a coherent methodology to set fees and understand what cost recoveries go with that. So primarily that consisted of understanding direct and indirect costs and where they can be where direct costs can be identified and where indirect costs are allocated. And then we looked at what comparators were doing, and we found in general that there were 2 approaches. One was for facilities, there are a number of challenges associated with attributing direct costs for facilities to certain or to parts of that facility. So we found that most comparators tended to use a benchmarking approach and looking at what others were doing in terms of charges. And then from a program perspective, benchmarking certainly informed programs, but it's much easier to identify direct cost. And so we found that some municipalities would just do benchmarking while others would actually try to do a fairly methodical direct cost calculation, which is more the direction that we've gone in with this. So that informed our approach. If we go to the next slide, in general with the facilities fee setting, again, this was based on benchmarking, and because again, isolating direct operating cost is challenging. So we looked in a fair amount of detail at facilities of comparable facilities of either neighboring or otherwise comparable municipalities. We looked at 17 of them and then made some judgment calls, given that they don't have, exactly the same facilities and service levels at those facilities. But those were the benchmarks that we used to think about, okay, what should the new Peach King Center charge, and how do we charge for other facilities we already that we have. If we go to the next slide, we then calculate cost recovery based on the revenues that were either historically experienced or anticipated going forward, and comparing and then estimating what the cost recovery would be using utilization assumptions. And the important points are at the bottom, which is that for facilities, obviously full cost recovery is not realistic or appropriate for recreation services, given that they're there to benefit the community, but it's important at the same time to understand what those cost recovery rates are. And subsidies, as we'll talk about later, are intentional and bring in that affordability piece. So that's the process we went through on that front. For program fee setting, this is more of a dance, so to speak, between the costs and the benchmarking of what other of comparable programs look like. And this, what we did was develop a methodology, as it says there, to reduce reliance on getting individual fees approved, but give you a solid methodology that empowers staff to calculate and justify rates. And that fundamentally involves estimating what the costs are at rather a detailed level, wages, materials, admin fees, and things like that, looking at what comparable programs do or are charged for in neighboring municipality, so that you understand where you are with respect to the market, and then understanding cost recovery given the rate that you might choose, so that you can make, this says, evidence-based pricing decisions and make judgments on that front. And at the same time, if you find that the costs are likely to be prohibitive or lead to fees that are prohibitive, it allows you to consider whether it makes sense to offer that program in the first place. So the notes at the bottom indicate the model allows staff to adjust inputs and really through a variety of variables and think about target fill rates, utilization, that kind of thing. And to make that judgment and then and also have that ability to create what a reasonable fee would be for novel or new or slightly different programs, so that there's a defensible methodology but an ability to adjust things as needed as circumstances or programs change. That's the broad outline of the program fees. And then we got into policy recommendations for a number of policy questions that we were asked to make recommendations on. And here we had a narrower and generally, though not totally closer, set of municipalities. And we wanted to understand a number of things ranging from their general fee structure to assistance for low-income households, resident versus non-resident rates, age-based pricing structures, and other items. And I'll go through those quickly. The rationale for all of these is in the full report, and we're happy to take questions on that. And if you have any questions about how any of the rates that I just discussed are calculated, Trevor can take you through those. But I'll just go through the broad policy recommendations now. So if we go to the next slide, in terms of age-based pricing structure, we recommended that the town continue its current structure by age, so 0 to 18, 19 to 54, and 55 plus, but apply a fixed percentage-based discount for children and seniors to improve consistency and streamline that. We also recommended developing a formal fee assistance program with income-based eligibility, phased in starting with child and youth programming, with partial subsidies for high-volume services. In terms of resident versus non-resident pricing practices, we thought at this time it makes sense to maintain equal rates, but to the extent that you want to prioritize your residents, do that through registration windows rather than having differential fees, and then track over time if you find that residential participation is in any way hampered, or whether that's adequate as a measure to ensure that residents of the town benefit from these programs and services. And you might want to adjust that later, but we thought this was the best mechanism rather than differential pricing at this point. If we go to the next slide, in terms of prime versus non-prime ICE rates, and gymnasium rentals, we thought it made sense to keep the current prime and non-prime structure. In terms of tournament rates, given the new Peach King Center opens, it's difficult to estimate what the demand will be. We thought it makes sense to sort of monitor what, at this point, not have separate tournament rates, but monitor demand, and then you can adjust that later based on the demand for the new facility. And that may be something that you find makes sense and is, depending on the demand going forward. But see how that evolves over time with the new center. And then field classification, we said to consider introducing that formal field classification system for rates based on size, quality, and maintenance standards. We understand the classification system itself is going to be fleshed out, so attaching prices to that at this point doesn't make sense, but that's certainly something that can be contemplated for future, as a lot of or several competitors do that as well. And then lastly, in terms of senior membership model, we recommended a slight change to this, keeping an annual fee, but doing a quarterly pre-registration fee instead of asking for 50 cents per visit, just so that you can actually use that pre-registration fee as an opportunity to understand demand going forward into a given quarter, and obviously reduce administration for very small amounts of money. And then revenue generation opportunities, we recommend that the town pursue a number of recreation-related grants, introduce structured sponsorship and naming rights, and look at potential partnerships. And then there's the opportunity for some pilot premium events and services. So those are some opportunities going forward. And then in terms of next steps, the the staff expect to begin implementing the proposed recommendations in a phased manner. There will be, the staff will be undertaking some public engagement to gather input and feedback that will shape those future rates and fees for that bylaw, and then regular reviews and monitoring. So again, this mechanism provides a means of provides a coherent methodology behind it. And then as you monitor or see changes in demand or costs or other factors, you can adjust or even changes in what your neighboring municipalities are doing from a benchmarking perspective. You can adjust it, but do so in a very clear way so that it's understood why fees and rates are changing. Happy to take questions, but that's the summary of what's in the report.
Okay, thank you for your presentation. Would staff like to speak to this any further? Trevor or Sarah? Actually, Sarah, we'll start with you.
I wondered, Chair and Noah as well, is it possible to have Trevor maybe just run through the report piece of it, do all of that, and then do all the questions at the end? I think Trevor does want to add some pieces, maybe a little bit more on the report side of things that he wrote, and then do all the questions at the end. Is that acceptable?
That sounds great. Trevor, if you want to chime in.
Thank you, through the chair. I won't go through the full report. I think it was pretty well covered by David. I just want to add a little bit more color, I think, in terms of how does this actually look when we're implementing it with our rates and fees and with the the programs and services we're expecting to offer with the expanded Beach King Center. I'm just going to share my screen here. So this was included in the agenda package, which is Schedule M and Schedule N. It looks a little different this year, but I did just want to kind of review the work that was done. I just want to emphasize how much work was done in terms of the benchmarking. So as David mentioned in his presentation, I think what's unique.
Trevor, are you able to, Trevor, sorry, are you able to zoom in a little bit more so we can see it a little clearer? Thank you. That's great.
Is that okay?
Yes.
So what's unique about these rates is that you have direct comparisons a lot of the time across municipalities. So an hour of ice in Grimsby is the same as an hour of ice in Lincoln, West Lincoln, honestly across Ontario. The structure is the same. Same thing for an hour of a gymnasium rental or a public skate. So in order for us to be competitive in the marketplace, it's really important that we're looking to the rates that are charged by others, because we want to make sure that, of course, we're hitting revenue targets, but we're also a desirable place to rent. So we can ensure that utilization is high and ultimately we're still hitting our revenue targets. So for this exercise, we were looking at as many municipalities as we can, and that's what's marked by the sample size here in column I. So I'm just going to pop over here. So you can see for ICE rates for adult prime, we have a sample size of 13. The benchmark average is 228. Our rate in 2025 is 252. So we're recommending a modest increase in 2026. Now moving on to the program methodology, this is a unique change that we're looking to make. This is for programs where we have unique components. A yoga class in Grimsby might not be the same anywhere else. How long is our class? What's the duration? So instead of having pre-approved rates, we're looking at inputs and then actually spitting out or producing a rate at the bottom. So in the case here, in the new Major Refrigeration Beach King Center, we're anticipating a maximum participant size of 15. We're hoping to fill the class at 80%. Sorry, I'll zoom in here. A subsidy rate of 15% would apply to those who qualify. So in this case, people over the age of 55. The class requires a single instructor. It's a 10-week program. We have, staff wages, material costs, and that all basically divides a number. We have costs, for facility, so $25 an hour, which is what we would charge ourselves to make sure we're covering costs for facilities. And ultimately what that does is produce a total cost of the program that it costs the town of Grimsby to run. We divide that by the anticipated participation or the anticipated fill rate, and then that produces a recommended cost. And the great thing about this model is you can go and you can change these inputs. If we're in, a specialty program that requires more instructor involvement, you can reduce the participant size to 12. The relative cost goes up, and that's fair because you're actually getting, enhanced service because that ratio with the instructor is smaller. So it's a flexible model that staff can use to make sure we're covering costs. At the same time, ensuring that as things change or even as we generate new programs, we're able to kind of be nimble and flexible and keep moving forward, especially as we're looking at even more changes as we move towards the opening of the Major Refrigeration Beach King Center. And that's it.
Okay, thank you, Trevor. Are there any questions or comments from the committee? Sarah, would you go? Yes, go ahead.
Thanks, Chair. If I may, I just want to really emphasize, so one of the big changes of what you're going to see, at least for council, when you get the user fees is instead of having all of our rates and fees for all of our programs listed, you're actually going to see the methodology and the principles of the methodology, and that's what will be approved. And that allows us in year to make adjustments. So an example would be if minimum wage changes and that actually has a wage implication to us, it gives us a chance to adjust immediately. If there's a busing system because of the type of program it is, or just other variables that may come into cost, it allows us to do that sort of real time with the next session, of course, right? As soon as we advertise a rate, we stick with it, but it allows us to do a little bit more of that in year. If a new unique programming opportunity comes along that we think is really desirable, again, it allows us to quickly use that methodology, come up with a rate, and not have to do every single rate approved by council. Sometimes things need to be 8 weeks instead of 10 weeks, all of these different variabilities. Just allows us to really build that correctly each and every time without having to constantly come back to council with small little variations and changes.
Do we have any, thank you, Sarah. Do we have any questions? Councillor Howe?
Through you, Chair. Probably to Trevor. Trevor, when I go through it, and it's got to be frustrating for you with the stakeholders, because it looks like the turnout or the participation on the stakeholders is about 30% at best. And yet that's where a lot of our not issues, but some of the loggerheads, come to play, but yet they haven't come and talked to us. Now, is there a different way, and you've probably talked about it, but to get them out, like, is it a matter of, the time of day when we have these meetings? I don't know if you did them in the evening, there's always that discussion. But it's got to be frustrating for you and for the whole department to see that type of turnover. And yet we always get that, and it's, well, what about the stakeholders? What about the stakeholders? Well, you take them to the water, but you can't make them drink, right? That's all it is to it. Very, very frustrating because I see the work that you've gone into it. One, if I can ask in respect to costing and your direct costing, and let's use the ICE as it has to be a fairly simple way of trying to determine your cost, but is that done on a yearly basis? Is it something we do periodically? It's got to be tough on the playing fields. I get that. You hit some bad weather, but just the costing of them so that we can say, there it is. It's like, what's the freeze box out here? Going to have to look at a new plant on that thing. But year, I believe, when that stuff is no longer available, 2 maybe, if we're lucky. So that's going to be, certainly a bump in the cost on the freeze box, but it's just frustrating, and I can certainly understand the aggravation. Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Sarah, go ahead.
Through the chair, I can maybe just briefly address Councillor Howe's comment. You're right, we didn't quite receive the feedback we'd hoped to. My experience, has been that sometimes when you don't receive a ton of feedback, it's because overall they're relatively content with where things are at. And I think even in the comments we have, I think when we looked at our fees, we are fairly in line for the most part where you see other municipalities at. And just for everybody's awareness too, we're fortunate the municipalities in the Niagara region share rates annually. So we're always looking at this every year, even though this exercise you're seeing this year, we do it every year. I think sometimes when you hear from the Moores, when we start to change things or change structures, and some of those things are going to take some more time, and we will be looking at some of those things as we keep going on. But I think overall, we know where we sort of are sitting relative, and I think maybe that was part of why we didn't quite hear from them as much as we would have thought we would have. It was certainly not for lack of trying. I just want to emphasize that to everyone. I know there was repeated attempts to try to get people out at meetings. Amoli made great efforts to try to make accommodations, so it was not for a lack of trying to try to get people out.
Okay, I'm going to take a shot at this. So a few things I really appreciated, but I will point out the things that I had hoped we would have maybe addressed a little more thoroughly. Tournament fees being one. That's something I think we are not getting our fair share from tournaments. However, I think this is a starting point, similar to like when we had pickleball. It was a new process that we're going through, and we're trying things out, and then we'll refine it next year. So I'm hoping there might be some adjustments next year. So maybe that's something you might hear from me again. The average. So in the report, it referenced how we need to stay competitive. And it would say that we are on the higher end, but then when we're talking about Niagara, but it always said it was based on a high percentage of prime usage. So this is a supply and demand issue. So clearly we are pretty affordable if we are getting all booked up for our prime rates. So really, we could bring up our prime rates. And if people don't necessarily want to use the Peach King Center, then they could book in West Lincoln. However, they're choosing Grimsby because of our location or whatever other amenities that we have that they prefer. So I think we are undervaluing what we have at the Peach King Center. So again, maybe this is something that we look at in the future. But I think that number was a little bit skewed for the average. I don't know if Amelie or David, if you could perhaps chime in on that.
Yeah, thank you very much for the question through the chair. Yeah, the average index was composed of 5 items. And so obviously the index can change a bit depending on what you include there. And I think the main benefit of this methodology is that flexibility and your ability to adjust it year over year. And so I think it's something you can absolutely monitor. And then if you see, tournament demand change and things like that, you'll be able to bring that information in as well. But I think, as Sarah said, you're within range a little bit towards the high end, and maybe the prime rate skews it a bit. But I think it's a general guide, and I think then you want to make judgment calls on specific rates.
Yes, Sarah, go ahead.
Through you, Chair, if I may add, I think there's also a couple of ways of looking at this. Get more money for the hours of ice that you're renting, or really try to go after getting some additional rental revenue and if some of the hours you aren't renting, and there are some of that. And I think our hope, at least for next year, was to really go after the latter. And I think that's where the competitive does help us, is there are sometimes shoulder seasons or even non-prime seasons where if we're high, they may not be choosing us. And I think that's where we'd like to go first, to keep that hour of ice more affordable and keep that overall, maybe it can increase our revenue overall, but also sort of manage that hourly rate. So I think that's something we would like to try. We can certainly come back to committee and share some of that utilization rate and look at it further as well after that.
Through you, Sarah, thank you. Sorry, just thinking back in relation to what you were just saying, when we compare to Burlington, for example, and again, I'm talking about ice hockey because there's a significant cost. When you look at their rates, they're on the higher end, which you've identified in the report. It's clear to me that they aren't necessarily, looking to entice outside of the community. If the outside of the community is renting, they're going to pay for it. Whereas we're kind of still subsidizing other members that aren't necessarily in Grimsby. So, and again, this might be something that we have to have a better look at next year as far as what we're subsidizing. For rep hockey, I know in Burlington and probably Hamilton, they have a cap on how many non-residents can be on their team. Otherwise, they have to pay the prime rate, right? They're not going to get the subsidy if the participants are from outside of that municipality. So, we're not talking 1 or 2 hours. These are thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars that we're subsidizing. So I know I keep talking about it, but I want to have it on record, and I want to have it constantly something that we take back. But I'm okay with this because this is a starting point, and you have identified that this is a methodology moving forward. So I do thank you for it. I am okay with it, but Sarah, go ahead.
Thank you, through your chair. You raise a good point that I think is worth mentioning is there is the rates we set, but there's also how we set our ICE schedule. And just for committee's benefits, we are working right now on our allocation process, which identifies how do you prioritize rentals, youth over adult rentals, or, competitive over house, like those types of things. How do you look at residency? So that is coming to you. I think we're targeting next month. Hopefully we're able to do that because it's not just ICE, it's actually going to be indoor space as well. And really, we do need to take those two pieces together. So I think once we get that second piece done as well, we can really start to look at our utilization even more with both of those pieces to really drive how we're charging.
And Councillor Kristanji, go ahead.
Through you, Chair, thank you. I just wanted to touch on the fee assistance program. I like it. I like that you're developing something. I think it's super important in so many different ways. I would like to see adults included in that first round, though, because I feel like if we're doing youth and we're doing seniors, we're leaving out adults, and I think the need is just as great in that age demographic because you have your working families paying for the whole household, but then not having access to recreation due to income, and then we have our adults who have aged out of school on ODSP, who live in poverty, and they're usually 21 when they graduate, and likely would be the need for recreational programming there. So I wouldn't want to say let's just start with every demographic but that, and that's not even coming forward till next year. So then by the time we look at adults, it'll be like 2 years. So I kind of would like to see them included in the first round.
Sarah?
Through the chair, fair point. So that is an item we'll be bringing forward as part of budget process. If we are successful getting some budget to support the program, then we can fully develop the policy further, and that will come before all of you.
Councillor DeFlavia, do you have a question?
Yeah, so back to your point about the tournament fees, I just wanted to ask a question to get clarification on that. So are we in line with other communities as far as tournament fees are concerned? And because if we are, then when our teams go to those other communities, they are subsidizing us in the same way that is being suggested that we're subsidizing them. So I just want to make sure that I'm understanding it correctly, because I know I go to other communities for tournaments, and if they're paying the same rate for their tournament as we're paying for ours, then we're offering a tournament in the same way that they are. But if ours are significantly different, that's where I would have a concern. So if you can clarify that would help me.
Sarah?
Through the chair, Trevor, that might be a good one for you, or others feel free. I just know Trevor kind of dove into that a little bit, one specifically as well. If you want to take a stab at that.
Sure. Through the chair, so we kind of have to divide the tournament conversation into two pieces: sports field tournament rates and then ICE tournament rates. Sports field tournament rates, and specifically day use rates, are incredibly common. So when we were doing benchmarking, most municipalities where you have sports fields, soccer fields, baseball, a day rate is very common. And oftentimes the day rate is actually less than if you were to charge the hourly rate, for 12 hours or for the duration of the day. So they're actually being subsidized more than an hourly rate on sports fields. That's what we saw across our scan. Now, ICE rates, not so much. The one example we did find was the city of Hamilton that charges a premium for their prime time tournaments. But I believe, Emolian, you can jump in if I'm wrong, I believe that was the only example. So we're just a little cautious that we're happy to keep monitoring it. but we also want to make sure that we're not, charging more than everyone else, especially when we're kind of sharing space with West Niagara Minor Hockey, who has, Grimsby, West Lincoln. We want to make sure we're still desirable. I know in prime time, we're very desirable, but in the shoulder seasons, as Sarah mentioned, April, sometimes over Christmas, March break, those times are harder to fill. We want to make sure that our rates, whether it be for a tournament or a development program, or even potentially if it's a non-resident program, if the ice is empty and it's not being allocated to residents as part of our allocation policy, any utilization is a net gain on our revenue, and that's something that we do want to be encouraging.
Okay, thank you, Trevor. Councillor DeFlavio?
Thank you, Chair, through you. So I think another thing that's important to discuss, and I know that this is common for all municipalities, but, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, the methodology that's used, it tracks just operating costs, right? It doesn't in any way consider capital, long-term types of costs. So I know that that's not what our goal is here, but I would like to see what the actual cost is. So to give a comparison, which is a terrible comparison, but it's the only one that I can think of that's an analogy. The CAA rate for kilometers on your car doesn't just consider how much it costs to put gas in your car, right? It considers how much it costs to maintain the car, how much it costs to buy the car. All of those things are incorporated into that cost. I'm not saying that that's what we need to have in our fees, because that would make the fees exorbitant. What I'm saying is we need to have a real understanding of what the actual costs are. And that's probably outside of the scope of what you're doing here, but it's an important thing for everybody to understand, because when we say we're subsidizing ice time by whatever time, by 40%, or I think that the cost recovery on the fields was 32%. That's 32% of the operating costs, but it's not 32% of the cost of replanting grass or whatever the other costs are, the cost of the building up there, the cost of the driveway going into the facility, all of those things. And so it's not a real cost. It's kind of I don't know how else to put it. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, maybe I'm talking to Sarah and not to the people on the screen up there, but I hope what I'm saying is clear.
Sarah, go ahead.
Through the chair, completely understand what you're making reference to. And we did talk about it quite a lot with this team and sort of hit those numbers where we can. What we've kind of learned is it's very complicated. There is a lot of assumptions you have to make into these things. We're also in the cusp of opening a new building, and I think getting actuals and really understanding what the cost of that building will be maybe the better time to also dive into that. I do think it's work we should do as well. I think we just really have to develop our data and really, that is a whole project unto itself, because there is a lot of nuance. Take Southwood Park alone. You've got 4 ball diamonds, multiple soccer fields, a leash-free dog park, the building that has multiple rooms, and then sort of that general park experience. You really almost have to break all of that out. Could be good work if you really want to dive down to what's that diamond cost, right? So it is a lot of work to do. I think there is value in doing it, but it really was beyond the scope of what we could do within this project, because to really do it well, there is a lot that has to go into that, and some assumptions also. Again, a lot of parks that have a soccer field might also have a park element to it. So how do you decide what's park, what's soccer field? And it's just, there is a lot that would need to go into it. I agree. It's a valuable tool for us to do and really drill down, but it is a little bit tricky as to how exactly you do it.
Councillor DeFlavio?
Thank you, Chair, through you. And I get that. And when we're doing something like this, it's important to compare apples to apples. And if other municipalities are using the same methodology, we have to do the same thing in order to set our fees. I understand all that. I just think from a council's perspective, understanding, like life cycle management, long-term costs of, refrigeration systems, those types of things are an important part of understanding fees. Not just for us. I think that this is something that all Ontario municipalities, if anything, if the asset management work that's being done throughout municipalities all over Ontario over the last, 10 years has taught us, it's that the costs are not just what we see on the surface. right? In fact, most of the costs are what's underground. And so this is a great superficial look at it, and it's important because we need to set a benchmark and have a place to go from. But I think from a global perspective, it's important to understand all of the costs associated with these buildings and all of the costs associated with the, the new roof of this building and all that stuff. So I know that's capital, but anyway, that's enough for me. Thank you.
Okay, great points, by the way. Any other questions or comments? No, thank you. Okay, thank you very much for your presentations and your reports. Resolved that report DCS 2537 Community Services User Fee Study Final Report and proposed 2026 rates and fees dated September 23rd, 2025 be received for information. And one, that the Community Services Committee recommend that Council approve the proposed 2026 Community Services rates and fees in principle, and that the rates be incorporated into the upcoming rates and fees bylaw update for 2026. All in favor? Okay, that is carried. And our second discussion report of the evening is DCS 2533 Grimsby Santa Claus Parade Road Closure 2025. Can I get a mover and a seconder to get it on the floor for discussion? Moved by Councillor DeFlavio and seconded by Member Brabant. Sarah, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. And yes, I am going to be the first to talk about Christmas, perhaps to all of you. We are excited that the Grimsby Santa Claus Parade will be returning once again in its regular time slot, which is the first Saturday in December. The road closure is as it has been in previous years, so staying much the same. We are doing some extra work this year just to look at some additional road safety measures that is quite commonly being looked at for a lot of different events throughout Ontario, really, with the region and also with our Public Works team. But otherwise, we're on track to have another great event where I think this is our largest, well, I shouldn't say, I think it is our largest community event that we have every year. We always have a fantastic attendance. And yeah, we're just asking for support so we can submit the road closure. I will just note that we expect next year there might be a slight variation to the route, expecting that the Downtown Reimagine project is going on, but we'll be bringing that to you a little closer to once we figure out what that exactly will be.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. Are there any questions or comments from the committee? No. Resolved that report DCS 2533 Grimsby Santa Claus Parade Road Closure 2025 dated September 23rd, 2025 be received. And one, that the Community Services Committee recommend that Council endorse the event-related road closures on Livingston Avenue, Main Street West on Saturday, December 6, 2025 for the purposes of the parade to then be forwarded to the Niagara region for approval. All in favor? Okay, and that is carried. The third discussion report is DCS 2534, Remembrance Day Closure 2025. Can I get a mover and a seconder to get it on the floor for discussion? Moved by Councillor Howe, seconded by Member Laird. And Sarah, please go ahead.
Thank you through your chair. So once again, another road closure. Remembrance Day road closure we've been doing for just the past few years. We did not used to do it, but a good news story is we get so many people that come out to the event that we really need the road closed just to make sure we have sufficient area for everybody to set up. It's often where they set up as well when they prepare to lay the wreaths and whatnot. So it's just a small road closure on that day, but really does help make sure there's safety for the event. Otherwise, it's a pretty routine closure that's done by our staff.
Are there any comments or questions from our committee? No. Resolved that report DCS 2534, Remembrance Day Closure, Road Closure 2025, dated September 23rd, 2025, be received. And one, that the Community Services Committee recommend that Council endorse the event-related road closure on Main Street West on November 11th, 2025, to then be forwarded to the Niagara region for approval. All in favor? Okay, that's carried. All right, fourth discussion report is DCS 2536, Community Services Information Update, September 2025. Can I get a mover and a seconder to get it on the floor for discussion? Okay, moved by Member Brabant and seconded by Member Laird. And Sarah, please go ahead.
Thank you again, through you, Chair. I'll just run through a few of the items and happy to take any questions at the end. So we are continuing our LED lighting retrofit program. We've done library, art gallery, town hall, and museum, and we are now also moving on to buildings such as Fire Station 1 and the Operations Center. The new Peachking Center will have new LED lights as part of that renovation component. We have awarded the demolition contract for the Oaks Road Soccer Clubhouse, which has been vacant for quite some time, and also the former Gamru storage shed that is on Elizabeth Street that has also been vacant for quite some time. Both of those areas will just be returned to naturalized areas at this time and may be part of future landscaping efforts in those areas. Stairs were installed at the Grimsby Beach to make that path that was there on those old stairs safe. We are also looking at doing something with the ramp area that is more to the west of that park. Right now it's a gravel surface, but we're looking at some options to do something a little bit different that's easier to walk up and down, knowing it's a wider pathway there, also probably a preferred path for people bringing kayaks and different vessels like that down there. And it also would be more easier to wheel up and down as well. So that is still something that's being worked on. The Elizabeth Street Pump House has had a bit of a renovation, and we included some photos for you to see. We worked with our Heritage Committee in terms of selecting colors that would be appropriate for that building and just give it a refresh that it really needed. It was a beige and sort of hunter green color, and really just kind of cleaned it up and given it a good refresh. So you can see the exterior of that building was painted as well as the interior. The ceiling is painted a dark black, and the window casings are also painted really dark, and it really looks quite nice. If you get a chance to see it, I would encourage you to do so. The little kitchenette area was also replaced and refreshed as well, so we're really happy with how that turned out. The wind phone quite a while ago, but that was a great success at Centennial Park. I believe many of you were there and got a chance to see it, and we continue to hear great things about that. The International Plowing Match, of course, has been completed. Really so proud of the whole team and all the work that went into that. I'm proud to say we had a member from every single department in our organization support that event in one form or another, and including attending actually at the event and supporting our booth. So I think that's really great. I was mentioning as well earlier to a few of the committee members, a lot of the assets that we had built out of that project are things that we can reuse. So we've really tried to build it in a way that we can reuse some of the posters, the big map that we did, the directional sign that many of you would have saw has all been done so we can reuse it for other events as well. So it's a good investment in terms of some of those things that we have to share at other events. We had several summer events this summer, including our movie nights, music nights in the park, again, quite well attended, continuing to grow. We had our first ever West End Casablanca Waterfront Park event. It was a smaller event that was quite deliberate, just to sort of test the waters and see how that community responded to the event. And gave us a chance to work on any hiccups or bugs, and looking forward to doing more in that area as time continues. There was a kite festival there, if you got a chance to see it, that was actually really neat, and I think shows some potential that we could grow in the future, so that was quite exciting. There's several upcoming events, Moonlight Market and Movie, and as well Grimsby Glows, which is always a very popular event the day after Halloween coming along. Our climate action plan, we have awarded that project, and we will be getting that work underway as well. In the next sort of 8 to 10 months, we hope to have that work completed. Once the climate action plan is done, it does give us our PCP and milestone 3 of the 5 that we want to work towards in terms of that climate program. This also would give us the opportunity to apply for more grants for facilities. So I think that's a really important piece just to note, is once we have this component of the plan done, we are eligible for some funds through Federation of Canadian Municipalities and some others once we have that plan to start to work towards retrofitting some of our facilities, so we can leverage some funding, hopefully, if we're successful there. 40 Mile Creek Park, the bridge is complete and finished and is continues to get really great feedback. The area that is open is going to be replanted and forested in the next coming few weeks, which is a partnership with NPCA and TD Tree Days program. We also, as part of that work, if you got a chance to see, hopefully I believe many of you did, is we installed some brand new wayfinding signage for some of our trails, and that is something that we'll carry out in some of our other parks. We're looking to do Southward Park next, just to make sure people know where all the walking opportunities exist around that area. Our staff are working on a microforest plan. We've encountered a little bit of hesitancy, I think, in some of our neighborhood areas to have a microforest in their area park. So we are going to take a little more time to decide on what the best strategy is to place microforests. But we do have funding that we need to use that was going towards that project. We are able to adjust that funding to move it more towards tree planting. So that is what we're going to do. So it will be spread to a number of neighborhood parks to make sure that we're maximizing that funding that we received. We have a TD tree planting event as well, September 27th at Southward Park. I believe this is our 6th, maybe 7th event that we've had with TD trees. Most years planting 120 to 150 trees. So it's quite an investment we've made in Southward Park over time. Our parks and open space tree inventory, we did award that project as well. That is going on now. So they are going to all of our different parks and inventorying our trees and doing a condition assessment of those trees. All of that data will be put right into our GIS system so that we can really have it all in one database, and also making sure we're having that database speak to how Public Works also has theirs set up. So it will be one full tree database throughout our municipality, which will be really helpful. We were successful in receiving a Public Realm Investment Program grant through the Niagara region, which will be supporting the investment of a new sign that will go in front of the major refrigeration Peach King Center. So that digital screen will be replaced, which many of you probably noticed is overdue for replacement. And it also includes some landscaping around the entrance of that area. And you see the rendering there of what that landscaping area will look like. Really will just kind of make it more inviting as you come through that entrance of the Peach King Center. We installed swing sets at Morrison Park, so that has been going well. We have had a little bit of conversation with residents in the area, some challenges of just identifying where park boundaries exist, where it's not obvious through a fence or planting. So we will be, I believe they're printed and ready to go, installing signs along the area that just indicate where the park boundary exists for those types of spaces. It's not just Morrison Park. There are other parks as well that we'll be doing the same for, just to make sure we're communicating to residents where that boundary exists. Grand Old Park, the Grand Old Oak Tree Stand, there's a photo there. That initiative continues of having a group of residents maintaining those gardens. They meet monthly, usually with one of our team members, Jill, as well, and they've been weeding and maintaining that garden. And it's been a really good example of some community members really just sort of managing and caring for that garden area. And then lastly is our fall leisure guide. I did attach a link there. I do hope you take a chance to take a look at it. The 61-page guide features quite a number of programs and activities that we have for our community. I think it's really worth noting that this has all been done while we don't have a lot of our usual spaces with the Peach King Center. So our staff have really done a tremendous job of trying to keep all of those programs going in different spaces and sharing spaces until we can get back into our new facility where we'll see some of our programs grow even further. That's it.
Thank you, Sarah. Are there any questions or comments from the committee? Okay, I would just like to say that the updates are my favorite part of this committee. I always look forward to them. Printed this off. Just as an aside, when we look back at our projects, I would also like to say Coronation Park is like, it makes me so happy every time I drive by. Even today, coming here, there's adults sitting in the chairs, just relaxing, and this is like, it happens all the time, randomly, which is wonderful. So thank you for that. All right. Resolve that report DCS 2536, Community Services Department, information update for September 2025, dated September 23rd, 2025, be received for information. All in favor? It's carried. And our fifth and final discussion report is DCS 2538, Peach King Center Expansion and Renovation Project Update. Can I get a mover and a seconder to get it on the floor for discussion? Okay, moved by Councillor Korstanji, seconded by Member Brabant. All right, resolved that report. Sorry. Yes, Trevor, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Great. So things are progressing very well over at the Peach King Center. Construction is on schedule, or on the revised schedule of substantial completion by mid to end of December. Currently, we are at 75% completion, and as I'm sure you could see as you came in today, things are moving along very nicely. Once we hit substantial completion, we'll be looking to move in furniture with targeted public opening date in early January 2026. One of the biggest changes that has happened on site as of late is the exterior site work. Most parking areas are now complete. There's still some space on the west of the property that needs to be completed, but currently we have over 350 parking spaces available, which is great. So it's a great improvement over what we had last year when we opened temporarily. So that is nice to see. All this exterior site work, so that includes the paving on the west half of the site, the driveways, tree plantings, landscaping, will all be finished this year, currently scheduled to be complete by the end of October. Interior work is also advancing very well. I believe just at the end of this week, all drywall will be finished. Just a little bit of taping and sanding that needs to be done. Elevator installation is almost complete. HVAC rooftop units are in, and things are really starting to take shape on the inside. We're actually starting to move into conversations about commissioning, staff training, startup as we move into the late fall. The Peach King Center has reopened for ice-only operations. September 12th was the opening date for the West Pad, followed by the East Pad this past Saturday. That was on schedule. When you walk in now, you actually come in through the main entrance, which is a greatly improved space from what you walked into last year, and it is heated. I think that has been greatly appreciated by the public. I did want to just express on behalf of the project team our thanks to the town's building and fire departments. Gaining occupancy of a building under construction is it's a lot of work and it's a lot of moving parts, and there was a lot of great teamwork that happened to allow us to hit this again, our second opening during construction. With the reopening of the Peach King Center, town programming is resuming. Public skating, I believe, starts in early October. Learn to Skate starts this Friday. Stick and Puck, I believe, starts next week. So despite construction, those programs will be continuing. We're also pleased to share that we have now concluded the sponsorship campaign for the naming rights at the facility. So this is in addition to the naming right we announced already with Major Refrigeration. And we were able to hit the target of $1 million, which will be carried over 10 years, and that will support operating expenses for the project. So announcement is forthcoming later this week of those naming rights partners, which will be publicly announced. In addition, Arena Board advertising is something that we had previously worked with a third party, and we had a revenue sharing agreement. Starting this September, we have moved that arrangement in-house, which means the town retains 100% of all revenues that are generated. And we're also using this opportunity to review where we have advertising. We're looking at potentially opportunities for expansion into the new areas once they're built. I think it's a great opportunity for us to continue to pursue other areas of revenue generation, as was mentioned as an important part of the user fee study. We will be reaching out to the public shortly for expressions of interest on two fronts. One will be for our concession. So the Major Refrigeration Peach King Center will have a new concession area, and we will be seeking interest from community partners, businesses who are interested in operating. This one is going to be really important. Obviously revenue is an important aspect, but we also want a concession that's going to be open. So making sure that, we can maximize those operating hours. Ultimately, the use of concession is also a service that benefits the community. So we're heavily looking for a proponent to, is able to have good operating hours that service the center that is now not just for hockey. It will have, operations that are year-round, daytime as well. A second expression of interest we'll be releasing shortly is, later this week, is a expression of interest form for prospective users. And by users, we mean organizations. Think basketball, pickleball, volleyball, badminton. We want to make sure we're kind of casting the net as wide as we can to see who has interest in running the facility. Of course, we already have, a good idea of some of the organizations that are interested, but we just want to make sure that we're giving the opportunity and a fair opportunity to all prospective community users of the facility to express their interest. And then our ultimate allocation of space will be governed under our new indoor allocation policy, which will be forthcoming to committee at the end of next month. In addition, we'll be looking to do a facility user open house. Again, so this will follow the expression of interest, and it's an opportunity to get some kind of key players in the room who are looking to use the facility. Again, we can review the indoor allocation policy, do some updates on the rates and fees, and really just to start have those more informed discussions about the programming and activation of the new space once it's fully open. So it'll be a great opportunity for us to connect with stakeholders and ensure a smooth transition into the facility. And we had some progress photos included in the report, but I guess if you're on site, you're able to kind of see the exterior for yourself. I've covered everything. Yeah, so again, we're moving ahead very, very quickly. And as we're trying to kind of, put the finishing touches on construction, we're very quickly trying to shift our focus towards operational planning, getting users, staff, everybody we need to in the building so that we can hit the ground running come January.
Okay, thank you very much, Trevor. Do we have any questions or comments from the committee? No, I'm just very excited, so thank you. Can't wait for this to be open. All right, resolve that report DCS 2538 Peach King Center expansion and renovation project update dated September 23rd, 2025 be received for information. All in favor? Okay, that's carried. Is there any other business pertaining to the committee? Okay. Our next meeting of the Community Services Committee will be held on Tuesday, October 28th at 6:30 p.m. Thank you, everybody. The meeting is adjourned.